Hi, I'm Adam Siegel. Thank you for joining us. Mental health is an issue that affects all of us in some way. Over the last year, a number of people have gone on to work remotely, and as a result, they've been dealing with some substantial emotional mental health issues. Today, we're going to be discussing these issues with two experts. I'm joined by Vanessa Ruda, who is an organizational psychologist and senior partner with RHR International. Vanessa, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And John Ryan, who is an executive search consultant and the managing director of TRANSEARCH International. John, it's a pleasure.
Hello, good to see you again.
Same here. Vanessa, I'm going to start with you. The numbers of people who are suffering from conditions like stress, depression, anxiety, and substance abuse has gone up substantially over the last year. And there is research that indicates there's a strong link between working remotely and these conditions. What's going on? What is the connection between working remotely and these mental health issues?
You know, it's a great question, and I think, and I don't know that it's working remotely in and of itself. I think it's working remotely in this context. So what I'm seeing is people who are just exhausted, capital E exhausted, right? Exhausted on multiple levels. Even people who had been working remotely prior to the pandemic, right? Now it feels different because now meetings are scheduled back to back 10, 12 hours a day. Now meetings are more Zoom than phone calls. So people who had been working remotely prior, oftentimes they were, kind of doing their own thing, and then they'd hop on a phone call, and then they'd be back typing, and then they'd be on another call. Now they're on Zoom nonstop. I say Zoom as a catch-all phrase for any one of the video conferencing capabilities. So it's exhausting in a different way. It's exhausting just the impact that being on screen all day has, the impact of not being able to get up and walk around, right? Just being sedentary, and the impact that has on our mental well-being, on our physical well-being. So there's certain kind of physiological things that are happening because we're sitting in the same place every day, looking at the same screen, and there's fatigue that comes from that. And then there's the fatigue of everything else that's sitting in the background, right? It's not just that we're working remotely, it's that we're working remotely and our kids are home and they're exhausted and they're stressed, or, whatever it is that they're dealing with, they're unable to participate in the things that they'd like to. People are grieving. They're grieving. Those who unfortunately have lost loved ones are clearly, dealing with acute grief. But many of us are grieving for aspects of our life that aren't really accessible to us right now. And we may not even realize that we're grieving for it. But there's pieces of our life, there's pieces of our identity. If people are active in their faith organizations or active in certain community organizations, that's not accessible to them right now. And then there's just the regular outlets, right? So people who may have been working remotely, but they would go out to dinner with their friends at night, right? And they get out and they move and they socialize. That hasn't been available to people. So I think what we're seeing is just layer upon layer upon layer, where the remote working is kind of what we see on the surface, but the iceberg is much deeper under the water, to use that analogy.
Absolutely. John, I know that you and Vanessa recently moderated an HR roundtable, and these issues came up as a topic of discussion. I'm just curious, what kind of things were people saying in terms of how their employees are coping?
Well, I think one theme in the roundtable was the issue of burnout. So folks have come in feeling anxious, burnt out, exhausted. Some people, frankly, have been coached to work less because they're, like Vanessa said earlier, they're booking themselves on 11 hours of Zoom meetings per day, plus getting to their regular work.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's true. The reality is that remote work is not going anyway. In fact, it will become the norm increasingly. Vanessa, I'm wondering if you can perhaps provide some strategies or some advice that you are providing to some of your clients now in terms of how you're advising them to manage these challenges, how organizations can do it, how leaders can do it, and the employees themselves.
I think there's a big connection between physical health and mental health. There is something that is not healthy for us about literally sitting in front of a screen all day. And so one of the things I'm encouraging people to do is to be really thoughtful about when you choose to leverage that technology. So when we need to be in a group meeting and we need to see each other's faces, absolutely, let's be in front of a screen. when you might be having a one-on-one conversation with, somebody who reports to you that you've known for 5 years and you've worked together. Go walk and talk is what I always say. Put your shoes on, grab your phone, walk and talk, have the other person on the other side of the line do the same, so that you're at least you're getting out of your office, you're getting off your screen, you're getting some fresh air, you're moving your body, you're talking to someone in some ways in a more natural way than you would be looking at a screen. There was someone I was talking to earlier, it must have been yesterday, a woman that I'm coaching, and it was a phone call, and she got on the call. She said, Vanessa, I was so relieved when I saw that you were on my calendar today at noon, because I knew I could take a break and I could walk. And I could hear the birds chirping in the background. I said, I'm putting my shoes on, I'm walking too. And we walked and we talked for an hour and a half. And I would say the other thing is to check in with people and ask them what they need. Different people need very different things. What I need might be totally different than what people in my team need. And then I would say the final piece, as we think about what, Adam, to your point, the future of remote work, right? And knowing that for most of us, it's not going to go back to what it was, but it'll go back to something different than what we're doing today. Being really open with your team and talking about, what do we need? When does it make sense for us to come together? And what kind of touch points do we want to have? And what would be helpful and additive? And when does it make sense for us to be, in the comfort of our own homes? I think just having really honest conversations and open conversations about that is helpful.
Excellent. John, I'm going to finish off with you. You speak with executives and candidates really all over the world every day. And I'm just wondering, what are you hearing from them in terms of what strategies that they're employing to help deal with these issues as well?
One of the things that CHROs and board members and CXOs are trying to dig into, or at least some of them, is walking the walk and sharing by example. So to Vanessa's example of having a lunchtime video conversation over the phone while walking the dog or going outside, a CXO said the very same thing 2 weeks ago. He said, I purposely am scheduling some of our meetings and organizing them, not as video, but just as I'm going outside and I'm going to go do a park walk. And I encourage other people to do the same if they still feel led. So he said that if I do it, other folks do it. If I don't do it, and if I sit there chained to my laptop, then everybody kind of does what I do. So he said, I'm kind of setting the tone. We talk about COVID, and I've shared this a little bit, but my father got COVID in the assisted living facility that he was living in New Jersey last year. And, basically the best way to phrase it is that COVID finished him off. And, it was sad because he's in New Jersey. I'm in Illinois. We weren't able to see him. We couldn't visit him. We couldn't really leave the state. We couldn't stay anywhere. And it really wasn't for a few more months that we snuck out there and had a memorial for him, to honor him. And it's just one of those things where, it just kind of hits you in the face at some point when it's a member of your own family, and you're sort of dealing with just everything that's going on. So
absolutely. Listen, John, Vanessa, thank you so much. This is really a fascinating discussion and also a very helpful one. In our next episode, we'll be looking at a related issue, and that is the return to work in the post-COVID era. Should be interesting. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll see you soon.